Colin Gray did not kill anyone, yet he is on trial for murder connected to a school shooting. Colin was a single dad of 3 children, one of them Colt Gray, a teenager who authorities say shot up his school, killing 4 and wounding 7 others. Now Colin has been accused of purchasing the murder weapon for his son after being told about his son's prior threats. Tonight, all the evidence is in and the arguments have been made, and it's time to hear from the jury. But first, Eric and Kouri Richins built a life in Utah centered on business ventures and family. But prosecutors say disagreements over money and property were intensifying. In early 2022, Eric died suddenly. His wife reported he had taken a drink she prepared earlier that night. Toxicology results showed fentanyl at levels prosecutors describe as 5 times lethal. Investigators allege Kouri contacted a man to obtain the drug and paid him thousands of dollars. She denies the charges. Now, as the trial is unfolding, jurors are hearing about text messages, financial documents, and toxicology reports. Tonight, we have all the latest from the courtroom as this high-profile murder trial continues right here on Court TV. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And yes, the case against Kouri Richins continues. And there are some facts here. And there's one fact that can be overlooked very easily and very quickly, but it shouldn't, because I think it's a very, very important part of all of this. And that's the amount of fentanyl in Eric's system. 5 times the lethal amount. Okay, how does 5 times the lethal amount get inside of Eric Richins, right? If we're talking about suicide and taking your own life, yes. If you're like a desperate drug addict who is in such a stupor that you can't tell what's going on, you might do it. Or chasing that high on this binge, right? But that's not what's been described either. I mean, to me, the only thing that makes sense is someone gets their hands on this stuff, crushes it up, and is trying to poison someone. Someone who the last time they tried to poison someone didn't put enough of the poison in the food. So this time there's definitely going to be enough in there, and it turns out there is way more than enough in there. To me, that tracks, that makes sense. But that's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You've got to establish it, and you've got to figure out how you're going to prove and convince this jury that Kouri Richins, this mother, this entrepreneur, this real estate house flipper, somehow got her hands on all this fentanyl. And that's where the housekeeper and a dealer come into play in all of this. Important witnesses in making that connection between the poison and the defendant. How are they linked? Well, this is the link right here. The housekeeper and a dealer. And their testimony is important, extremely important. What's also important in a situation like this, when you have a young couple with 3 young children raising a family, we've seen the picture is beautiful, but you've got to demonstrate that there were problems. And there is now evidence that this was a troubled marriage. For whatever reason, right? It doesn't matter what the reason is, necessarily, but there's trouble in paradise. As a matter of fact, there's big trouble in paradise. So much so that Kouri was looking for a way out. But there's a couple other factors that are playing into all of this, which is custody of the children, which is the financial aspect of this, and don't forget about her floundering flipping. Right? She's trying to flip these houses, and she keeps taking money, doing all this stuff to try to prop up her business, which she is so convinced that she is just going to be a superstar. My goodness, I'm going to flip so many houses, they're going to give me a show on HGTV. That's how good I am. But she wasn't. She was horrific. She was horrible. She was a failure. And that plays into all this, and that plays into part of the strain in the marriage. What do people fight about? Sometimes they fight about money, they fight about how the kids should be raised, and sometimes they fight about infidelity. And there was talk about that. and there's going to be evidence about that. At the end of the day, where we are now is this is a completely shattered family. You go from this image that you're looking at to what you're looking at inside the courtroom. A father who is dead. A mother who was on trial for murder. And all the ugliness of what was going on is now becoming very public. And you've got 3 young boys who are going to grow up, and some of them may have already read about it, but it's going to be there forever, right? And that's what's different these days, right? The internet is forever. So whatever reporting there was about this story, about this case, about this trial, they're going to know everything. And what they choose to believe is up to them. No child wants to believe that mommy killed daddy. They just don't want to believe that. But this family is shattered, and it shouldn't have been. Hey, you got problems, you have a divorce, you figure it out. You figure it out, you make it work. You're not alone. There are millions of families like that are able to make it work. And everything you do in the best interest of the children. But it doesn't seem like that's what was done here. So today, another big day in this case as prosecutors moving forward, trying to prove this connection to the poison, trying to prove that there's trouble in the relationship. Let's take a look at some of the biggest moments from today's testimony.
Making a determination of undetermined means that we generally can't decide between two. In this case, I would say actually generally most cases where we certify death as undetermined, it's because in overdose deaths that we certify as undetermined, it's because I don't know enough about the person's own intent. We see it frequently in the setting, for example, of people that may have depression or other mood disorders, and maybe even prior suicide attempts, as well as they may have substance use history that they use to self-medicate their depression and things. And so in this case in specific, we did not really have any concerns about suicide in this case, but there had been concerns related to our office that perhaps someone had done something to provide this to him and that he didn't just take it himself, but we didn't know. We had no idea how he got the stuff into his system, and so with that, we were left with undetermined.
So the choice there would have been, as opposed to accident and suicide, it was accident and homicide.
Correct.
Kouri and I were finally in a position where our husbands were no longer with us. We were just discussing life. We both have kids, our marriages, and Kouri opened up and shared that things were difficult at home. A word I remember is that she felt trapped. I learned that their marriage had a prenuptial agreement. She explained she was frustrated in the relationship, but also it would be difficult to leave. Eric would end up financially secure and her the opposite. She mentioned maybe the kids would prefer him with the lifestyle that they had, four-wheelers and toys and opportunities, where she would have less. I felt for her. It was a hard conversation. I knew that things had been hard since their youngest child was born, and I was tender towards her current circumstance.
Is that the context of the conversation you were having that day, that she believed he was having an affair with a coworker, and that's why she was upset with her marriage and talking about divorce?
I don't recall that.
Were you aware of it at that time, that there was an affair going on between Eric and a coworker?
I'm having a difficult time understanding because I think there was a friendship with a lady, but I don't know exactly what was going on.
Understood. That's fair. So let me rephrase it. Did you become aware that Eric, at around this time, 2019, had intimate feelings towards a woman, that another woman that he worked with, that was causing problems in their marriage?
I don't remember when I became aware of it.
There it is. There it is. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining me tonight, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Also joining us, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland and family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. We've got the perfect combo for tonight. I want to talk in this segment about what we just heard from Eric's business partner's wife, talking about Kouri, 2019, being worried about the future, being worried about the finances of the future, of whether or not the kids would want to be with her. She had a prenup. Al, is this stuff kind of adding up to the only way out of this thing? Or is this like planting the seeds for what may blossom in the future, which is there's only one way out of this marriage, where she comes out with some money if Eric dies?
And that is the situation that they're bringing up, and they're doing a nice job putting it in front of the jury. I mean, she's in a position now where she's worried that if he leaves her, she's left with nothing. The prenup is pretty solid. If she leaves him, she gets nothing. She may not have the ability to keep the kids, even though I doubt that. I mean, I think that they would probably, joint custody would be the least that they would get, but they may probably stay with the mom based on their age. And she's just, putting ideas in her mind as to why she has to go to the extent that she is and take him out.
Darnell, you smelling the seeds of motive there early on in 2019?
Well, you know what I don't want to do is say anything about custody tonight, because we have an expert on the panel who knows about custody more than anybody here, even though she never tried a case. Never prosecuted a case. So what I am smelling here is worry. And when you have worry that's not worried about the children or their best interest, then it will lead a jury to, in my opinion, to feel like, what type of character is a person who's in the position that they may end up divorced, but instead of worrying about how the kids are gonna, progress, they're worrying about if the kids are gonna like the husband more. They're worrying about what kind of money they're gonna have versus not. In terms of her business, we know if you crack an egg and it hits the pan, it sizzles for a little while and you flip it over. Her house business was not sizzling at all. So she was lit, there was no flipping there. So when the jury's looking at this, it's like, what kind of trouble we have? We have trouble in the marriage, we have trouble in her business, and therefore, when people are in trouble, they do bad things. And so I think that's what they're trying to put in front of the jury.
Jennifer Brandt, is there any sort of a misperception that she's expressing here? I don't know about divorce. I don't do it. Never practiced in that area, never been involved with it. But if you, even with a prenup, and you build a life together and you've got 3 children and a family, does that sort of change the game a little bit?
Not at all, Vinny. And, what's interesting is her fears and what she's expressing to her friend and what's kind of come out of trial are very common. In fact, most of my clients feel the same way. They're worried about their kids. Are they going to be with the other party more? Do they want to be with the other party more? They're worried about finances. And when a prenup is involved, a prenup can be rock solid. Courts don't necessarily overturn prenups. So they're signed for a reason, and they protect people. They protect assets. So she knew that she wasn't getting money from him other than maybe child support. And she was worried legitimately that the kids, 3 little boys, they may prefer to be with dad more. Not that that would necessarily sway a court. She would have the kids also. But, when she had the kids and was living in an apartment somewhere and he had the huge house with all the toys, were the kids going to want to be with dad more? These are common worries. What's not common, Vinny, was her reaction, what we think happened. To poison him, to think about it, and we talk about these cases all the time. How does anyone think that that is a better out than going through a divorce and maybe ending up where you don't have as much money and you don't have the lifestyle, but you do get to see your kids and you're not stuck in a prison for the rest of your life? So I don't know why people think somehow they're going to get away with this stuff, but starting out and expressing these concerns, that's that's par for the course.
And we have to remember, this goes back to 2019, so this is sort of like the foundation of it all. What's interesting here is that her fears are that he's having an affair, and then at the time that Eric dies, Al, she's the one with a lover.
That's right. She's the one that's already found somebody else, and she's now even another possible motive with regards to same, because life with the new boyfriend would be a lot better if she inherits. So, you have a very interesting situation here. The financials and what will happen to her down the line. I mean, let's face it, she's a flip-flop, okay? So her flipping is flopped. She doesn't have the ability to put, money together, to put a future together for her and her new boyfriend. So what's the best way to become rich? Inherit. It's the easiest. It's the cleanest. But unfortunately, she has to get her hands dirty in order to be able to take him out.
And Vinny, if she has a new boyfriend, Jennifer will confirm this, cohabitation and all those little family law stuff will also vitiate the prenup. So if she has to choose, I'm going to keep the boo, my new boo thing, and you're going to mess up the prenup, so I got to take him out.
Well, she might have waived her right to alimony anyway in the prenup. Who knows, what it said. But she wanted to move on. I mean, that's another motivation. She found her new love, and she wanted to move on with him. And as Al pointed out, inheriting money and starting out with life with some money in her pocket, that would have been all the better for her.
All right, folks, we've got Al, 10 seconds. Go ahead, wrap it up.
Okay, but with regards to the prenup does make conditions for her and does give money to her. It was probably looked at by an attorney, and she was able to get something. Then it's usually based on the amount of time she's been married. So there will be some sort of financial payoff to her if there's a divorce based on time and whatever the deposit was beforehand. So that happens all the time.
We don't know for sure. We don't know what she got in the prenup. That was in the prenup. She might have waived everything. Who knows? People do crazy things.
Love does crazy things, and then love ends. All right. Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at another big issue in all this, the fentanyl. Did the housekeeper get the fentanyl from the drug dealer and give the fentanyl or sell the fentanyl to Kouri? Or was there no exchange of fentanyl? Is Eric Richins the one who introduced fentanyl into his own system? We'll talk about that, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan investigates a peaceful neighborhood shaken by flashing lights. Detectives say Nancy Guthrie was taken against her will. Why hasn't this case been solved? Tonight, we investigate.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
With these transactions, when Carmen hit you up, what did she tell you?
She just told me that she had a friend that wanted,
Did she ask for blue specifically or fentanyl specifically, or did she ask for Roxies, or what did she ask for?
No, I think she might have asked me for blue. I can't remember.
But you sold her M30s, right?
Yeah, I told her what she knew what she was buying.
Okay, so it wasn't like she's asking for Roxies or something like that, and she got the M30s.
Right, no.
Okay, so she knew that there was fentanyl in those pills.
Okay. She knew there was fentanyl in the pills because the supplier knew there was fentanyl in the pills. That's from the police interview, right? That is the supplier being interviewed by police saying she knew, meaning the housekeeper knew there was fentanyl in those pills, the housekeeper who got the pills and then sold them to Kouri. Fentanyl, 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 everybody knows, right? Well, that same supplier slash drug dealer, whatever you want to call him, testified in court. And his testimony not consistent with what he told police in that interview. Take a listen.
So do you recall a meeting with prosecutors in this case in April of 2025 to discuss your testimony?
I do.
And that was before you met with myself and Mr. Bertram in September of 2025?
Yeah. Yes.
And at that meeting, did you tell them then that you never did sell fentanyl to Carmen Lauber?
I told them that I'm pretty sure that I sold her Roxies and not fentanyl.
Okay. So you told them, excuse me. You told them basically the same thing that you said in September of 2025 and what you're saying today
Yes.
in your testimony. And did you sign a sworn affidavit that that in fact happened?
I did.
All right. And were you sober when you met with the prosecution in 2025?
I was.
To tell them that I never sold her fentanyl, I sold her Roxy 30s,
Yes.
oxycodone.
Oxycodone, yeah.
Did anyone ever ask you for the Michael Jackson stuff?
I'm sorry?
I think that answers my question. Nobody ever asked you, Carmen Lauber didn't ask you to sell her the Michael Jackson drug?
No. No, it was that.
Do you know what that is?
What do they call that? Prohypnol or something? Propofol. There you go. Yeah, I've heard of it as I watched the Michael Jackson thing when he died, but yeah, nobody's ever asked me for that.
Do you know if you can even buy that on the street?
I doubt it.
Okay.
It seems like they would keep that under a tight lock and key.
When you initially agreed with detectives that you might have sold fentanyl, you were high, you were coming down, and you don't remember saying that specifically. True?
That is correct, yes.
And when you met with myself and Mr. Bertram in September of 25, and you said you were selling only oxycodone, you were sober, correct?
Yes.
And you were being truthful?
Yes.
All right. When you met with Mr. Bloodworth and his investigator in April of 2025, you were sober?
Yes.
And you said you were only selling oxycodone in early 2022?
That's correct. Thank you.
Robert, I want you to look at the jury. I want you to tell them, are you telling the truth here today?
Yes, I am telling the truth.
Okay. Selling the Roxies back then. I'm not selling fentanyl. That's a lie. That's a lie. Maybe I said that before, but I was high. Now I'm sober. Now I remember that I didn't sell fentanyl. You know, the fentanyl that killed Kouri Richins. That wasn't me. I sell Roxies back in 2022. I didn't have fentanyl. Or it was more like this. I didn't have fentanyl. Okay. So now let's take a listen to the housekeeper and her recollection of the way this transaction went. She's like the broker. She's the middle person, right? She's the one who's brokering the deal, right? She's got the connections. She knows how to get in contact with people that can supply drugs. She's got a client, I guess, who she works for, Kouri Richins, who needs drugs, has no idea, but knows that the housekeeper is somehow connected to this world. Why you would let that person be your housekeeper if you knew she was connected to a drug world is beyond me, with 3 children at home. I have no idea why you would do that, but apparently she did. So let's take a listen to Carmen Lauber, the housekeeper, the middle person, the broker of this whole so-called drug deal. Take a listen.
Let's talk about the second time that you purchased drugs for Kouri Richins, which is am I right, the first time you purchased them from Robert Crozier?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about that first purchase from Robert Crozier. How did Kouri Richins approach you on that purchase?
She had reached out to me in text message and said that her investor needed or wanted something stronger. And I kind of told her, well, I can reach out to the people I don't know. You just can't say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. When you're buying drugs off the street, you pretty much purchase what you get. And at the time, I didn't know anybody, So I reached out to another acquaintance that I knew that was still using. He said he had a buddy that had some fentanyl pills.
What then did you do?
I had texted Kouri back and told her that I had a friend that could get them, but they were fentanyl pills.
So you told Kouri you had a friend, a hookup for fentanyl pills?
Yes.
How did Kouri Richins respond?
She said, okay, go ahead and get them.
Is it clear who's lying here, Darnell? Who's lying? The drug supplier, the drug broker, who? The housekeeper, this guy, Crozier?
It's not clear. I got to say it's not clear. And the one thing is clear is that if you're in a jury, you have to be saying to yourself, has the prosecution proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt? And if you have competing positions, the guy seems likable, and it's plausible that he was high and didn't.
The likable drug dealer. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. You see, Vinny, that might be a shock to you, but when you come from the streets like I do, you understand this. There are people in your neighborhoods that are likable, and they could be drug dealers. Look at everybody talks about The Godfather. Every judge's chambers that I've gone into, they can sit there and talk about The Godfather as though like it was a respectable
Darnell,
business. But
The Godfather never sold drugs. That was the whole problem with the other families. Al knows that. The other families wanted to sell drugs. The Godfather said, no, we don't do drugs.
Well, it doesn't have to be just that when they were in the life of crime, and you can still have good people or likable people in the life of crime. You can't parcel out to drugs, but you can blow somebody's brain off and say that's okay. You can have likable people who are in life of crime is what I'm getting at. And that's all I'm saying. And so this jury is struggling, and they will struggle because they both seem to be plausible. I don't really like the housekeeper, actually. I think she comes off less credible than the so-called supplier.
Jennifer.
I don't think either of them appear to be very trustworthy to me, Vinny. They both seem like they're making up stories. I don't really trust either one of them. And if I'm sitting on the jury, I'm looking at all the other evidence. I'm looking at Kouri's troubled marriage. I'm looking at making a sandwich. I'm looking at all these other things that are going on and sort of disregarding these two. Yeah, she definitely got something through the housekeeper, whether it was fentanyl or oxy or whatever it was something. So right there and then, there's something going on. I mean, who else would have done something to him, and why did he end up dead? So I don't believe either one of these two, but something was definitely going on. So I think that's what the jury's going to think.
I'm just perplexed about Mr. Crosland's neighborhood, where they have nice drug dealers. That's really nice. Ben, the situation with regards to these pills, there were pills bought. There is a epidemic of fentanyl. Counterfeit drugs are made and manufactured using fentanyl because it's cheaper, and it's able to give you the same sort of punch that you would get from a Roxy or an Oxy or anything along those opioids ways. So either way, there was drugs sold. He may stand up now saying, well, I was selling Roxy, but there's no way he knows what was in that, because like I've said before, there is an epidemic of counterfeit drugs out there, and those counterfeit drugs are basing themselves on fentanyl. Now, I know the nice drug dealers that live by Darnell, it probably wouldn't sell counterfeit drugs. But in the situation with regards to what went here, it maybe the drug dealer's supplier was not as nice as the drug dealers that hang out at Darnell's house.
Yeah, where's Darnell from? Darnell, are you from the streets of Greenwich? Where are you from? Like the streets of Greenwich, Connecticut? Yeah, the mean streets?
Every time I tell my friends I'm from the hood, they bring up the Greenwich thing. Let's just not tell people what street I live on. You blow up my credibility, my street cred.
The hood means on your car. That's the only hood you've got on that Bentley.
Unbelievable. All right, think tanks staying where they are. When we come back, closing arguments today in the case involving a school shooter. He is the alleged one on the left, but he's not the one on trial. It's the guy on his right, his father, who's on trial for his son's alleged school shooting. The jury has the case. We'll show you what happened today.
He's a good kid. You know, he wasn't perfect, nor was I. But he did do something that heinous. Like I don't know if anybody could ever see that kind of evil.
That's Colin Gray on trial for a mass shooting allegedly done by his son. I say allegedly because his son's been charged, but his son has not gone to trial yet, Colt Gray. Instead, his father is on trial first, which is sort of counterintuitive when you think about it, right? Like, one of them is the mass shooter, the other is the father, and you're attempting to convict the father for something that the son did, but the son is still presumed innocent. Like, why not try the son first? There's a strategy to it, I'm sure, for prosecutors. But to me, it doesn't make logical sense. In the Michigan case, the Oxford school shooter pleaded guilty first, then the parents were tried for what the son admitted to doing. So here, we've gone through the trial. He testified, told his side of the story, his perspective on what he knew or didn't know about what was going on in his own son's life, why he purchased his son the weapon that ended up being the mass murder weapon, bought it for him for Christmas. He explained that. Today, closing arguments. Let's take a look. We begin with the prosecution, then we'll hear from the defense.
And every person in this community wanted to know one thing: who did this and how did this happen? Everyone except for that man, the defendant, Colin Gray. He was not asking that question because he knew exactly who had done this and how this happened.
I knew when my little girl just texted me, she's in middle school, she said, we're in lockdown. I'm like, God, please tell me, brother, you'll do something.
In fact, that man was the one person who could have prevented this mass shooting. He was the one man who ensured that Colt Gray had the tools he needed to commit mass murder. Ladies and gentlemen, that man and his son are both responsible for the immense suffering that occurred on September 4th. The blood is on their hands, and the defendant needs to be held accountable for his actions that led to the murder of 4 people and numerous other injuries, both mental and physical.
In the indictment, they indicate that Colin Gray knew that this would happen. That's real important because that really is the key to this case, is what did he know? Did he know that Colt would do this? What evidence do they have that points to he would do it? That's what they've alleged in their indictment. And if you'll remember, District Attorney in his opening statement told you he knew it. He said he knew that this was going to happen. How did he know it? Got a child with some issues, but how did he know it? Was there anything that showed that he knew it? That there's a gross deviation. What's gross deviation? That's something that you're going to have to figure out. Was this a gross deviation where he allowed his son to have this gun? It's not illegal to have. Everybody in this community wants to see somebody go to jail other than this young man right here. This is the person who went into the high school and shot and killed 4 people he didn't even know and injured scores of others. This is the person who needs to be punished. He made a conscious decision to do this. a secretive decision. This is the person that should be punished. He's being charged as an adult, which means he suffers the same consequences as an adult would if he were charged in the case. We were not able to have him testify, nor was the state. The reason is that we couldn't call him because his attorney would not allow us to do that. It would be hearsay if we attempted to do that. Had he been tried first, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could get some answers to some of the questions that still linger for all of us.
Some interesting points brought out by the defense in the argument. Again, this is a very aggressive prosecution. We're in a place where we've never really been before. Two things, though, I just want to put on the table and then you guys take over. One, the fact that he knew. Did he know, or was it that he should have known? And if he should have known, and he's the one man who could have prevented this, I go back to 16 months prior when police were investigating an allegation of a threat of a school shooting, and they could have prevented it also if they had followed through in that investigation in a more thorough way and actually charged him, right? So there's that. And then the order of things here, like putting the father before the son in trying them. I thought the defense did a nice job there of kind of like, well, if we did it the other way around, which is what happened in Oxford, still got a conviction, but did it in that order. So I'm just laying that out there for you guys. Jennifer, why don't you start us off, and then you guys take over.
Well, as to your second point first, I agree that the son, it would be easier to point the finger at the dad if the son had already been convicted. But now we're saying, well, you know, he's been charged, but he's not, we don't have a conviction. So he, like you said, is presumed innocent. So that makes it difficult. But going back to your first point about not only should he have known, but his son was troubled, and his son had admired school shooters, and there was investigation previously. I mean, there's a lot of things here that nobody would want to put a gun, a rifle like that in the hands of someone who had these thoughts, who admired school shooters, who had troubles. I mean, to me, I think it's an appropriate prosecution. And I think that to the extent that parents maybe are held accountable like they were in Oxford, I think maybe that would deter some of these school shootings, because why are you doing that? Why are you putting a gun in the hands of someone that is so troubled and is having all these issues? It's just, there should be some punishment for that. So I think it's appropriate.
If I could jump in, the key word that she said that was beauty before brains, Al. So I think when Jennifer said there should be some punishment, I think that's the key thing. When you have this new space that we're in where parents are being held liable, I don't think they should be held liable to the same statutory level of the actual shooter. It should be some punishment. I mean, the statute should definitely cap like the jail time or whatever for the parent, guardian, or someone else, because these cases may become too expansive. This one might be egregious, but the other one might not be. It might just be that the parent bought the kid a gun. But as to the closing argument of the defense attorney, I didn't like it. I said to myself, if I'm fortunate enough to become an elder member of the bar, I'm sure I can get away with some things. I'm sure I'm never going to develop a Southern accent, so that's not going to help me. But for him to say that, gross deviation, this is what you're going to have to struggle with, and not give them some guidance, I don't know about that. Also, defense attorneys are told that this is a bifurcated system. You have to determine guilt and innocent, and don't worry about punishment. That's for the judge. And he mentioned jail and stuff like that. So I guess he has some liberties because he's an elder member of the bar. And I hope I get those one day when I start forgetting stuff. But, right now, I can't get that. I have to stay right on point. So I don't think his closing argument was that good. but he probably got some passes because of his position. Al, can you help us out with that? I know you've fallen asleep because you're an elder member of the bar. But
and then I deferred to Darnell because bald goes first. Okay, so we let the bald guy go, and that's why I allowed it in these instances. You know what? The father put the weapon in the kid's hands. The father knew that the kid had some issues. The father's reason for doing it was, I wanted to be a good dad. I wanted to have something, an ability to have something in common with my son. And he decided to give him an AR-15 that he was going to also use for hunting purposes. Look, you know what? This is insane. Why you're arming a 14-year-old with mental issues is beyond me. And the fact that the father, when he heard about it and the school was locked down, it was just, yeah, I knew. You knew, and you gave it to him anyway. It's just absolutely horrific. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with Darnell. I don't think it's necessarily second-degree murder. I have a problem with that. But, I mean, the Crumley parents got involuntary manslaughter, and they looked at, and I think it was a 10 to 15-year sentence.
Yeah,
if I'm not
this is
mistaken
10 to 30. This is 10 to 30. All right, deliberations tomorrow, folks. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, thank you so much. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, she was expected at church. She never arrived. By Sunday afternoon, investigators were sealing off her home. What are they not saying about the abduction of Nancy Guthrie? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Kouri, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board, and what do we have? Text messages released. This is the case of Shanna Gardner. She is the one accused of hiring a hitman to murder her ex, the father of her twins. Unbelievable. Shanna Gardner's her name. And now some text messages have been revealed, which are very revealing. Take a look. There are some comments. Go to the bottom one. This is her response. Just when I think doing this whole 1 week off on thing is a good idea, it gives me such great pleasure imagining slitting his throat. There you go. Joking about slitting the throat of your ex-husband, the father of your children, who then is murdered by a hitman. Whew. All right, take a look at your screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Samuel Cameron. Samuel is missing from Bryan, Texas, just 17 years old. If you see Samuel, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Bryan Police Department in Texas. That number's on your screen right now. Let's see if we get Samuel to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere with another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.